The Pacers destroyed the Knicks in game four, 121-89. Trevon, what are your thoughts on this game, but also the series as a whole? The Pacers just tied the series up 2 games apiece. So, what are your thoughts on this series as a whole, and how do you see it progressing as we move forward?
I think that this series has taken a turn definitely with the Pacers tying it up 2-2. When you have a 2-0 lead, you hope to come out of games 3 and 4 with a 2-1 lead. And the Knicks were close to doing that in game three, even though I think that the Pacers had good control over that game as well. But just having it be tied back up, especially with the Knicks situation, like everybody on that team is pretty much banged up or hurt. And you could tell, man, like the Knicks just look like they have been through it. And it's only round two so far. You think of things like the heavy minute lows that Brunson and DiVincenzo and Josh Hart play. And you kind of question if it's finally starting to catch up to them because Brunson hasn't looked himself, and we know that's due to his injury. And the injury could have came from him playing so many heavy load minutes, like over like 40 plus, I believe so. I mean, there's only 48 minutes in a game. So the man's playing like 90% of the game. And the same thing goes for DiVincenzo and Josh Hart. Josh Hart, with the way he plays, it's very physical and a lot of hustle that goes on. So you can only expect for him to feel some type of injury, and DiVincenzo's going through his stuff. I saw Hartenstein fall down to the ground a pretty good number of times. They're thin at the big spot already with Julius Randle with his injury, and then you throw in Mitchell Robinson's situation, who is one of their best bigs. So, like throughout the roster, they're just dealing with injuries, and you can really tell like Jalen Brunson has pretty much been the one man offense for them so far in this playoffs. DiVincenzo had a big explosion in game number three, but it just wasn't there for them on the offensive side. And we know how the Pacers like to get up and down with the fast pace, and they can put points on the board. And that's pretty much what happened tonight. The Knicks just had no resistance for them. The Pacers were flowing on all levels. That crowd was loud. They had the momentum. So it was really tough for them to kind of get a grip of things and have a rhythm. And that's what resulted in the blowout for the night.
Yeah, the Pacers just came out with a big haymaker. It was an avalanche of 3 pointers and easy baskets and dunks and all that for the Pacers. And like you mentioned, the Knicks, they're just banged up, man. But in terms of this game, the Knicks were held to 36% shooting in the first half. 5 Pacers players reached double-digit points in the first half. And it was just a whole lot going in favor of the Pacers. It's just tough to watch, especially with the Knicks looking as banged up as they are. And you and I have talked about it before, Trevon. I don't know if we've said it on camera, but I've always been a little concerned about the amount of minutes that the Knicks players play. So I do think that they have to try and figure out the management of player minutes, but it might already be too far gone. The damage might have already been done. And
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson, he just doesn't seem to have the same lift on his jump shot or his moves with that foot injury. And Josh Hart, giving it all he can. He's been banged up. DiVincenzo's been banged up. You just listed the rest of the players as well. OG Anunoby, he's a big part of this team, and he's out with that hamstring injury, and he was
Mhm.
dealing with the elbow injury during the regular season. So it's just a
Yeah.
lot of injuries and things plaguing the Knicks. But with that being said, they've been warriors. They've been fighters. They have continued to push forward. And I mean, I think game three is a example of that, just how they fought and how close they made that game, even though they lost. Honestly, that probably is the game that they let slip away from them. And if they won that game, we might be looking at this series a lot differently. But I still want to give credit to the Indiana Pacers because we all know what they do offensively, and they showed that in this game. But defensively, they have kind of flipped the switch in the postseason. I mean,
Yeah.
Naismith, TJ McConnell, Nimhard, those are probably their best defenders. And then you have Miles Turner blocking shots and protecting the rim. So
Mhm.
this team in the regular season was not great defensively. They
Mhm.
started getting better towards the end of this season, but in the playoffs, it's showing. I like the adjustment that Coach Carlisle made in terms of switching Naismith onto Brunson and also TJ McConnell. Those two are probably the best matchup that they have for the Pacers to guard Jalen Brunson. You know, just giving credit to them, but the Knicks, they definitely look banged up and they definitely look injury riddled.
Yeah, I think that's the main takeaway. Just you could just see the difference in this team, and with Brunson being the spearhead of that offense, when he's going, that makes things easier on that end for everybody else. But like you said, credit to Naismith. He was being very physical, and TJ McConnell, what he's done, I think he's a big piece to this Pacers team. They've been taking the challenge on Brunson, and I think it's really just inspired that type of mentality for this Pacers team. And then, like you said, you got Miles Turner on the back end, kind of being that anchor for the defense, protecting the rim. And I think they have pieces defensively who can guard individually. But I think throughout the regular season, the team just didn't have that, I guess, energy to give into it. They were putting so much into that fast break, fast paced offense that they had. But I think when you get a team into the playoffs in a playoff setting where they can lock in on one team for a series, I think that can allow you to be better defensively because you're not just going from team to team and having different games throughout the playoffs where you can't truly lock in or catch up on certain things. You know, in the series, you get to pick up on players' tendencies. You know what they're doing to beat you, so you can counter that. I think of the Nuggets last year in their playoff run. They weren't really seen as a great defensive team. You had KCP on the perimeter, but or Aaron Gordon as well. But I think that's when we really started to see their defensive ability shine because you're getting to lock in on specific teams and certain players for a longer period of time instead of just from game to game a different player. And Jokic and how he has pretty much shown that he's serviceable in the defensive end, maybe not with the athleticism or the verticality, but using swiping at the ball and using his body and stuff like that. So I think that's what we're seeing with the Pacers, and I think that makes them a dangerous team because we know they can get going offensively. Game three was really just like a rock fight. It was a really physical
Yeah.
battle. And I think that's just what the Knicks are feeling right now. It's hard. Like once you give a team a little bit of life, they're gonna take every chance that they have. And the Pacers knew how dangerous it is to go down 3-1. Of course, it's been done before with teams being able to come back from that deficit, but they knew that especially going back into Madison Square Garden, that's something you don't want. And like Tyrese Haliburton said, the pressure is on New York right now. They're going to have to respond. They're going to have to find a way to win and muster up, the ability to take back control of this series. Because if the Pacers get Game 5 and they go back to Indiana, that's just as tough as going down 3-1 into New York. So I think the Pacers really got a lot of momentum, and if they can get past this round, even if they do play against the Celtics, you think about like that in-season tournament, and at this point, all stuff goes out the window because you both have a chance to win the conference finals. Their confidence is very high. Their Haliburton is a guy that leads that team and exudes confidence in the rest of those guys. So I think the Pacers are really starting to sense a level of confidence. And look, man, like if they can go in at Madison Square Garden and win after losing those first two tough games, it's going to be very confident boosting for them. And I think they have a good chance and they can sense that.
Yeah, most definitely. And game three, I think it was really the pivot point because if the Knicks win that game, then the outcome of this game, it feels a lot different, right? And
Mhm.
we all know in playoff series, it just takes one play, one game, and a whole bunch changes, right? So
Yeah.
if the Knicks won that game, which I think, like I've said before, they kind of let that game slip because, like you mentioned, after that rock fight of a game and down the stretch, you just saw the intensity, you saw the physicality, bodies were hitting the floor on both teams, and you just think about the Knicks being so banged up that coming into this game, I kind of had a feeling that the Knicks would have a showing like this just because of how banged up they've been and how physical, especially the end of game three was. So I really feel like game three was a pivot point. Now, that's not to say that the series is over. I mean, obviously is not. It's 2-2 going back to New York. We'll see if the Knicks can rest up as much as they can to try and combat what they had to go through in game 4. But this series is taking on a different light after game 4.